to Father-Son Flight Sim. Today I'm doing a first flight in a newly acquired Bonanza F33A. Now this plane is one of my all-time favorite high-performance single-engine land planes. It's one that I've always wanted to fly when I was flying, but you know, very hard to get access to one as a student pilot. So you know, I didn't really get the chance to fly one in the real world, but now I get to in the virtual world. And so today I thought it would be a fun trip to try to go to Big Bear. Big Bear is in the mountains, San Bernadino mountains, close by. It's about I don't know, maybe about an hour flight away. And the interesting thing about going to Big Bear is that it's up in the mountains. You have to fly kind of you know, really high to get there, and you know, be careful about the landmarks. I also have a partly cloudy day today, so I'm hoping I don't run into any IMC conditions, or right now it's cumulonimbus very few, and we might just have some trouble there, but I'm not using ATC, and I'm planning on doing a VFR flight into Big Bear, which is airport L35 from Orange County, KSNA. So let's get our bags packed. Got our bags packed in there, and let's hop into the plane. All right, close the door, and let's get this show on the road. And the first thing, I mean, I'm still familiarizing myself a little bit with this plane, but I'm going to turn the power and the alternator on. Whoops. And I'm going to get it ready for starting. So that means I'm going to get my strobes on, and I already took off the yoke here because I'm using the physical yoke. I don't really like to have the yoke in front of the buttons there if I can help it. And then let's see, they need to go full prop and turn on the fuel. All right, and then we're going to full mixture, a little bit of throttle, and we're going to prime it for about, I don't know, 5 seconds. All right, that's the fuel pump. Then we're going to go back to almost idle, and then I'm going to go ahead and start. Alright, I don't know how loud that is for you, but that is pretty loud for me in my headphones, so I'm going to turn that down. Let's see, I don't know how that happened. There you go. Let's turn that down. I think that's a little better, a little more manageable. Maybe a little bit more. Look at that, it just goes right back up, even though I said I don't want that. So let's, just in case, we'll turn the master down a little bit, just in case it does that again. Alright. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and turn the rest of our lights on. We need the beacon and the nav lights. We're going to turn our avionics on.
Orange County, John Wayne, Skyline, Information Foxtrot, 2200 Zulu weather. Wind 190 at 11, visibility more than 10. Sky conditions 1000 few, 5000 few, 17,000 scattered, temperature 27, dew point 17.
Okay.
Altimeter 2994. Arriving runways 20 right, 20 left, departing runways 20 right, 20 left. Advise on initial contact.
Alright, so we are going to do an orange departure, which is after takeoff heading 330, and then we're going to intercept the radial between Seal Beach and Paradise VOR, and then from there we'll go to I think it's called Iran intersection, and then that will, from there we can have a nice straight shot in between the mountains to Big Bear. So let's make sure that's all in there. I think that's interesting. Why does it do that? There we go. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to intercept the radio. Instead of going direct to Seal Beach, I'm going to intersect the radio. So I'm going to activate... Oops. Let's see if I can... Okay, I need to get the big one. It's kind of hard to... There we go. Then I'm going to activate that leg. Alright, that should give us the 6-1 radio from Seal Beach. And let's get to our... Okay, so then we'll dial this in to 061. And that should get us where we need to go. Okay. Let's go ahead and taxi for run up. Parking brake off. I don't trust you guys. Keep going. That's right. Okay. Taxi to the tower run-up, which is right here off of Intersection Hotel. Okay, swinging around to the tower. I always like to point to the tower for some reason. I guess that's what I did with my training. Alright, parking brake. Alright. Now we're going to proceed to run up. Okay, let's do our magneto check. Oops. Okay, first one on the left. Yeah, we got good RPM drop. Alright, let's cycle the prop. Okay, that's cycling, good. Check fuel, we're good. Let's check our engine gauges, temperatures, cycle temperature is good, oil temperature is good, amps are good, and oil pressure is good. Check, check, check. Okay, let's throttle back down. Check flight controls, free and correct. That goes up, that goes down, that goes up, that goes down, and over elevator, up, down, good. And our rudders, we have full free travel, good. Alright, cycle the flaps, halfway full, halfway full, and those are good. Alright, trim set for takeoff. Alright, and we're all ready to go. Normally I would tell ground I'm ready to continue, and they would tell me to taxi Brio Bravo to either Kilo or Lima, which is right up here. I'm going to plan to fly the plane up to about 9,500 feet. Oh, come on. I had it. You gotta be careful with your aim on this thing, I guess. Alright, let's stop at Kilo so I can finish this. Okay, parking brake on. Alright, let's get this right, just in case I need to use it. I don't really think I'm going to use autopilot, but who knows? Maybe I'll test it out, see how well it works. There we go. Oh. There we go. Alright, transponder on. And we are squawking VFR. And we are ready to go. Alright, fuel pumps on. Mixture full rich. And parking brake off. Nova traffic. Okay, let's go. Slowly throttle up, get that P factor minimized. Alright, got a little bit of a crosswind here. Gear up. Trim, recline, and turn to 330, which is our departure, orange departure out of Orange County. Okay. Now prepare for the long climb. It's going to take me almost all the way to Paradise to get up to the right altitude for the rest of the trip. We're watching that temperature because I'm going to have to close the cowl flaps at some point. I'm noticing some chop up here. We got a little bit of bumpiness with the wind, so it's a little bit of unstable air. Redlining the engines a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of prop. Okay, stabilize for climb, engine performance so we don't blow the engine. And I'm looking for when I cross that radial. Got a little jitter there. The one thing that's weird about X-Plane when you have clouds at this kind of level with like few clouds is like you may actually get into the clouds without even seeing the cloud before you're in it. That's kind of strange. I mean, you should be able to see that you're about to enter a cloud, but for some reason it does that, and it sometimes can throw you off whether or not you're going to be able to remain VFR or not. So we'll just take that as we go, and we'll just try to be careful and try not to get an IMC as we get closer and closer to the mountains. But if we do, it's okay. I can navigate at least to a point. My approach into Big Bear has got to be VFR, because the approach for the IFR approach, which is an RNAV approach, comes in from the complete opposite direction. And with the mountains in there, I'm not going to be able to transition to that IFR without proper vectoring. And if I'm in IMC, I could get into real trouble. Thankfully, this is a simulator, though, so if I do actually get into trouble, well, let's just say it won't be earth-shattering. So, alright, I'm at 5,000. I'm going to start leaning out the plane, or getting up to 3,000. So there's my exhaust gas temperatures right there in that center. You can see them climbing as I'm pulling back. And then you'll see when they peak and when they come back down, and we want to go slightly lean of that peak. So, alright, they're coming back down. So I'm going to leave it right there, and it will go pass through the peak as I keep climbing, so I'm going to have to keep my eye on it. But that gives us a little bit more efficiency as we're gunning into the climb. I am really slow, so I'm going to have to speed up a little bit. Okay, I'm also intercepting the radial now, so time to turn. And intercept Paradise. Which in the real world is anything but paradise. Alright. Well, I'm gonna blow through the radial. Whoops. That's okay. We can correct. Alright. Okay, continue to climb. 500 feet per minute is probably a pretty decent rate. It'll get me up there in about 9 more minutes if I can keep 500 feet per minute. No, wait, that's 7 minutes. I really love the feeling of being in this plane or in the VR. I mean, really nothing compares to it. I mean, it really feels close to the real thing. The only thing, you know, I do like, and I don't have a big problem with the clouds in X-Plane, but when you see stuff like clouds like rotating the way some of these do, when it's at this setting, it's just kind of weird. You know, like that. That shouldn't look like that. That's weird. It's just spinning. But, you know, overall, though, I don't really have a problem with clouds in X-Plane. I mean, they do their job, and quite frankly, it's not the most important thing to me in a simulator. It's weird how they reload in like that, too. I mean, who knows? Maybe one day I'll get a plug-in that does clouds a little bit better, but I'm kind of hoping that Laminar Research just naturally improves clouds. I mean, the clouds that are native already look a lot better in VR than they ever did in 2D. So I think maybe it's just a way they designed them. I don't know. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see if they're able to make that better. Okay, let's give a little bit more on the prop. Okay. Continue our 500 feet per minute. Let's lean out a little bit more. there's past the peak now, continuing to climb another 2,000. It's going to go back up to peak as I continue to climb. Chino Hills down there, Santiago Peak over there, Chino Airport's just beyond over there, and it looks amazingly lifelike with the orthos that I have installed. Amazing. The green arcs on the Bonanza, you have to pay attention to when you're in cruise, because you know, it's very important that you don't damage the engine or over torque the engine. So on the Bonanza, you want to keep the manifold pressure sort of in the lower arc there, the lower half of that arc. You can barely see the green arc there. And on the RPM, it's roughly, I want to say, 1800 RPMs to 2600 RPMs is the green arc. And then of course you have to watch your temperatures. Now my temperatures are starting to get too low, so it's time for me to start closing the cowl flaps. And we'll keep an eye on those engine temperatures. We should see them hit that sort of the green arc as well. Also can only burn one tank at a time, so I'll have to watch the fuel in each tank. And what I've been doing is when the left tank gets to about a quarter tank, I'll switch to the other tank. But there's plenty of fuel to get to Big Bear from here, from Orange County, is my load. I wanted to keep it light because I know you have to climb pretty high, and you know, with a high weight that really affects the performance of the climb. So I wanted to keep it basically just under half tanks. And I also simulated 2 people in the plane, so about 400 pounds of transporting cargo. That's me and a co-pilot, which isn't here. But that should be pretty typical, you know, for a trip to Big Bear. Big Bear is also a funky airport to land in because the runway is pretty narrow, and also it's known for having lots of crosswinds. In fact, there's a story where there's windsocks at each corner of the airport, and at one point all 4 windsocks were pointing in different directions. And that's because of the way it's situated between the mountains. It's possible to get sort of a cyclone effect of the wind there in the valley. So you just have to watch out and not get caught in it, and maybe, you know, just you have to be really good at crosswind landings, I guess. And I'm not that great at it, but you know, I'm probably good enough to get this thing down. So, and when we get up to altitude, I'll do some outside views. I'll put the autopilot on, and we'll get some outside views of the plane so you can see it in action. We're almost up to altitude, which is a relief because I really want to get to a faster speed here. Let's get out of the flight plan mode here. We've got about, 9 miles to go to Paradise. And I've got 2 tickets to Paradise. I'm just kidding. I guess that comment really dated me. I can turn the fuel pump off now. Turn it on later when we get ready to land. Alright, up to altitude, time to level off. Start speeding up the plane. And do my final mixture. Alright, we're looking good. Mixture is right about where it should be. A little lower there, okay. And since I closed the cowl flaps, you can see that the temperatures have gone up. But that makes this a little bit more aerodynamic. Okay, and as I speed up here, I'm going to add a little bit more prop, get that down to 1800 RPM. Just about. It's still in the green arc, and that should be easiest on the engine. Manifold pressure should be in the green. My throttle is all the way in, and that's a cruise configuration. Alright. This plane is such fun to fly, man. Jeez. Very much outperforming the Cessna at this point. I mean, Cessna wouldn't have been able to make the climb quite that fast and not carry the speed that we're carrying. And our ground track looks like 137, so we have quite a headwind going on right now. Looks like, or tailwind. Sorry, tailwind, not a headwind. Alright, so let's go ahead and put the autopilot on. Turn on the flight director, altitude, and nav. Let's see. Nope, that's approach. Nav, and turn the autopilot on. Alright, let's make sure it's doing its job. Just correcting my... Alright. Just retrimming the plane. Sure it's doing its job here as it's speeding up. And I'm going to do a little bit down on the mixture. I don't want it to be at peak. Alright, we're almost at paradise, so we're about to make a turn. So let me get an outside view. And yes, it's fun to just float out here. You can see my two people are in the plane. And one thing that's kind of weird, oh, there's the turn. One thing that's kind of weird, and maybe I'll show it to you on the ground, but when I have an outside view, the pilot turns his head to look at me. It's kind of freakish. You know, let me go over here and see if he does it. Anyway, I can't probably see it, but it's funny. Oh boy. I hope you don't have a fear of heights. But yeah, it's just a beautiful plane all the way around. Yeah, see, he's looking at me now. So this will be my shot for the opener right here. My outside view. Gotta hold my head steady. don't think it has a flyby option. It has chase. So you can see we're heading into the mountains. Now that color change that you just saw there, that could mean that we're about to be in IMC. Sometimes it kind of gives you a hint like that. You can kind of see some very light clouds over there. So I better get back in the pilot seat to make sure. But I'm on autopilot, so I should be okay. Let's change my heading. There we go, lined up. And I gotta recenter the view. There we go. And you know what? This should be a little bit more to the front. Don't ask me how I do that. It's a trade secret. So, yeah, with the cowl flaps closed, we're in the green still for the oil temperature and cylinder temperature. Our amps are still good. Oil pressure still good. I don't know if this outside air temperature gauge is actually showing me anything. It doesn't look like it's an actual gauge. Another thing it has, which is kind of interesting, is this is a ground radar, and it can detect if you're getting close to the ground up to about 525 feet, right? So one thing to watch is if I'm getting into the mountains and I'm in IMC and I see that, I may need to turn around very quickly and head in the opposite direction, because that means that I have a mountain coming up. But it's also useful when you're coming in for landing, and helpful for when you need to start flaring, so you can get closer to a good landing. Also has your typical map. One of the places I like to put it is right about here, or like that. That's kind of neat. But I don't really like the map because I can't switch this from VFR to IFR. You can kind of see where I'm at. So San Bernadino Airport's right there, and I think the airport intersection that I have to change is somewhere around here. I think it's either there or a little bit further, but I have not been able to get my Lonely screen to work, and so it's unfortunate because it's stopping me from doing any live streams, and I would really like to live stream in VR, and I can't really do that unless I can see a window for chat. So while I could get like a web browser in here and see like maybe you know, an IFR map in here, it won't have the plane, but you know, it would be very helpful if I could you know, get the chat in there and see if that can work. But so far I haven't been able to do it with the virtual desktop or the Oculus Dash. I don't want it to take up the whole, you know, wing. I want to minimize it just so I can be able to look at it, and I haven't really figured out how to do that yet. And I think Lonely screen doesn't work with me because I have to use it with wireless network, or I have to use my iPad with wireless network, and it just seems like it's too much for the system. Well, did you look at that? It's starting to get real hazy. That's a bit nervous. If this is real life, I might even turn back or go to San Bernardino Airport instead. We'll see. Yeah, I mean, without seeing the mountains straight ahead over there, that really makes me nervous. Now I know I'm above them, and you know, as long as the autopilot does its job, I shouldn't have any issues. But if I get really close to Big Bear, I might have to go into settings and reduce the weather to be able to land. Let's check out our ground speed. We're at 140 knot, or 139 knot ground speed. We have 10 miles to Iran intersection. And then that will start our turn direct to Big Bear. And we'll be flying right over the lake. Alright, I'm at a quarter tank. Now, time to switch tanks. Start burning the other side. So now already I know I'm straight and level, but I'm actually starting to get sensations of turning right for some reason. So I'm like, is it doing its job? So I'm trusting my instruments. And I am straight and level, but I am getting that sensation, partly because of the haziness that I'm flying through right now. Okay. About 6.7 miles to go, or nautical miles to go. We'll turn in. It's like right after that. You can barely see that mountain right there, I think. Or right before it, sorry. The valley is kind of right in there. And that's when the excitement starts, because that's when you really got to be careful about the mountainous region. We're going to shoot right down that canyon right there, or kind of that valley area. These orthos are incredible over the mountains. So I'm going to go ahead and check the map. L35 and see if I can get ATIS. Or AWAS or whatever it is. Alright, 29901. Let's go ahead and set that. Let's see, indefinite scattered, 4,400 broken, which is funny because that's below airport level. And visibility 10, and you have a almost that's a little bit of a crosswind, I think. I think it's runway 226 or something. No, it's a headwind. So we should be okay. Okay, the airport should be straight ahead. Now the thing is, I'm not going to descend until I can see basically the airport. So, or not really the airport, maybe the lake at least. The airport elevation's at 6,748, but it says it's 4,400 broken. That's just really funny, you know. That's got to be a bug in or some. Okay, so we're heading straight in. Now, Big Bear is a tough, like I mentioned, it's a tough airport to land in. And let's hope I don't biff it up, because generally this plane is not too hard to land, but when you have a very narrow runway and you have a crosswind, it's just going to make it difficult anyway. So any plane would be difficult in those conditions. So let's see if I can do it right. I'll have to drop about 1,000 feet, maybe 1,500 feet to get down to about 8,000. And that's roughly pattern altitude there, although you have to also be careful because of the mountains on the left traffic. You have to be cognizant of all that. It's actually probably a little better to come in a little high in this airport, maybe even a slight slip if you misjudge it a little bit, rather than to go in too low and risk hitting the mountains. So Big Bear Lake is just past that mountain hill straight ahead. And once we see that, if we can see the ground like we're seeing it now, I will go ahead and start descending, and hopefully we won't. I don't see any clouds down there, but I hope we don't hit IMC on the way down. That would be really bad. You can see I'm starting to get hits with the radar now, which means we're only a little over 500 feet above the ground here. At least at some points. You know, it's varying. You can see it varying. It's kind of neat. But I can see that I don't have a problem here. So the way back, you have to fly at 8,500 feet going back, and that's a little more hairy, especially because you know, you have to be even more cognizant of that mountain right there. Okay, there's a lake. We're coming up on the lake now. Good old Big Bear Lake. I used to come here just about every summer to go camping. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and start my descent. So, autopilot off. Alright, and let's start our descent. I could just follow the lake because right at the end of the lake over there is the airport straight ahead. And our target is 8,000 feet. Put the mixture in as we descend. Okay, and turn the fuel pump on. Alright, the rest I'll do with the controllers. Alright, I see the airport straight ahead, so that was the landing gear warning, because if you go too light on the RPMs, it will sound off. Okay, I'm slowly bringing the prop in, and I'm slowly going to bring the mixture in. Slow down. Alright, gonna drop the gear now. Level off. We got 3 lights, good. And there's the airport right there. Alright, that's a little close, so I'm gonna go a little wide here for the downwind leg. See how narrow that runway is? I mean, that's a bullseye target to hit. Difficult. It's great for practicing touch and goes, by the way, if you're looking for a challenge. This airport is a really good one for that. Alright, getting a little slow. Another thing you have to worry about at this altitude is the density altitude. So even though my indication is at 8,000 feet, the plane is actually probably behaving more like it's at 9 or 10,000 feet. So almost, it's going to act a lot slower. It's going to be hard to climb because the air is that much thinner when you have summer weather. Okay, I'm going to start descending. Okay, first notch of flaps, and start my turn. Bit steep bank here, but I don't want to overshoot that too much. Alright, and final flaps. Okay, so if I don't lift this up, I lost speed pretty quickly there. I don't really care if I go a little long. Looks like there's not much of a crosswind, so that's good. And we made it. Let's see, that gave me a pretty decent landing score there. I'll have to go back and review. Let's get off the runway and go to park. So, in the winter, I'll be time to go to Snow Summit. Over there. Okay, we're now hitting the FBO. here. Actually, I'm gonna have to turn. Oh, I'll go over there. Good. Parking brake on. And let's start turning our lights off. Avionics off. Fuel pump off. Alright. Nice. Okay. Turn that off. Turn the fuel off. And whoops. Whoops. And there we go. We are shut down. Parking brake on. Okay, let's get out. And you can see our pilots on the ground. Let's see. Is he gonna look at me? You gonna look at me? You gonna look at me? Man, this is so creepy when he looks at me. Come on, you can look at me. Yeah, there you go. Oh, that's so creepy. That's so creepy. It's just so weird. But okay, overall, let me just give you some impressions on the plane. I really love this plane, and it's actually an old plane. I think Carenado makes it, and they have just recently put in a VR modification for it, so now it's fully configured and for VR flight. And I will not buy a plane anymore without a VR component to it. So let's get a nice final view. So I highly recommend this plane. It's one of my favorite GA planes. You know, it's really my first purchase of a GA plane. So it's, but I think it's a lot of fun. And I'm really they have a reality expansion pack for it. I'm really considering it, and sort of get into a more realistic maintenance and care. You know, having consequences if I don't land the plane just right, you know, or if I don't treat the plane just right, or if I don't manage the engine in flight correctly. Look, he's looking at me again. Okay, but this was a lot of fun, and you know, this is a good trip. A lot of people that are training in Southern California, they like to come up here to Big Bear, just because it's a nice challenge for a pilot. Alright, with that said and done, if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Father-Son Flight Simulator. Till next time.